It's Monday, March 16th, and this is now on HNN.
And we're announcing new guidelines for every American to follow.
The U.S. now has more than 4,000 known cases of COVID-19, as the White House recommends avoiding gatherings of more than 10 people.
Doctors are fast-tracking efforts to find a coronavirus vaccine. I'm Skyler Henry in Washington as President Trump promises more testing.
Meanwhile, the number of confirmed cases in Hawaii grows as the governor urges social distancing.
We anticipate seeing many additional cases.
Death tolls from the coronavirus hit new highs across Europe. I'm Cindy Palm with what authorities are doing to try to control the spread.
It's all gone absolutely crazy, hasn't it?
These stories, plus clearing up the misinformation about pets and the virus, coming up on This Is Now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan, your director producer here alongside Ashley. You're watching This Is Now on HNN. We want to get started with the late-breaking developments regarding the coronavirus. There are now 4,100, at least 4,100 confirmed cases in the U.S., along with 71 deaths.
That's right. And as the numbers continue to grow, President Trump once again addressed the nation to discuss the federal government's response to the pandemic. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
As national and state leaders strategize next steps, President Trump updated efforts from the White House this afternoon.
And this afternoon, we're announcing new guidelines for every American to follow over the next 15 days. As we combat the virus, each and every one of us has a critical role to play.
The president also participated in a video conference with governors nationwide as some states raised concerns about a lack of emergency supplies and protective gear for those on the front lines.
We are also working very much on getting them the kind of equipment that they need, and for the most part, they either have it or they will be getting it.
Among the new guidelines issued today, avoid gatherings in groups of 10 or more people and avoid travel or social visits unless necessary.
New Jersey's governor is urging people to stay home between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. except for essential travel.
This is not a curfew, but it is strongly recommended and travel is strongly discouraged.
A growing number of states are now asking restaurants to shift to delivery or pickup orders only. And in Maryland, the governor also ordered state health officials to look into whether closed hospital facilities could be opened to increase the capacity of beds.
We have never faced anything like this before. This is going to be much harder, take much longer, and be much worse than almost anyone is currently understanding.
On Capitol Hill, the Senate returned to session and must still take up a multi-billion-dollar relief bill to help families and employees impacted by the virus. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
All right, thanks, Natalie, for that report. Want to get you a check of the numbers on the markets on Wall Street. The Dow plummeted 13% today as fears deepened the coronavirus will throw the global economy into a recession. It's the market's worst drop in 3 decades. We were saying that a lot last week, and now it's happening again, all over again. Let's get a check of exactly what's happened. We have Wendy Gillette there on Wall Street.
The Dow Jones plunged further Monday, closing down almost 3,000 points as the economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic continues to mount. President Trump says the economy may be heading toward a recession.
Once this goes away, once it goes through and we're done with it, I think you're going to see a tremendous surge.
Stocks tanked quickly after the opening bell, triggering another circuit breaker. The third trading halt over the last 6 days. The sell-off came despite the Federal Reserve's announcement Sunday it was slashing interest rates by a full percentage point to near zero.
They did it with a good motive, but the other narrative to that story is that, oh my God, if we're lowering it, if we're shooting every bullet out of the chamber, leaving us at zero, is there worse economic news on the horizon than we think?
One of the hardest hit sectors is travel. An airline trade group warns cancellations are so bad, without government assistance, major U.S. carriers could run out of money by the end of June. The White House says it's looking to do something for the airlines.
We're going to back the airlines 100%. It's not their fault.
Restaurants are also feeling the pain as more communities ban dine-in customers to slow the spread of the virus. The New York Stock Exchange is not immune to the new reality. Healthcare workers checked traders' temperatures before they were allowed on the floor Monday. Wendy Gillette, CBS News, New York.
All right, we got some late breaking news into the digital center. Our producers out in the newsroom just sent this to us. Officials in 6 San Francisco Bay counties issued a shelter-in-place mandate. That was just hours ago. That's affecting nearly 7 million people, including the city of San Francisco itself. The order says residents must stay inside and venture out only when necessities are needed for 3 weeks. That's coming from the San Francisco area. The late breaking news there, a shelter-in-place mandate. Let's get a check of the local case numbers here at home.
So right now there are 7 coronavirus cases in Hawaii, 4 on Oahu, 1 on Maui, and 2 on Kauai. We're told there is 1 test currently pending. Now, of all the test results that have come back, 49 have been negative. Yesterday, Governor Ige and state health officials gave more details about the latest cases, which were discovered by private labs, and they say there is still no evidence that the virus has spread within the community.
Of the latest 3 cases, patient 1 is an Oahu resident who traveled to Colorado from February 29th to March 7th. The individual displayed symptoms on March 9th and tested positive on March 11th. The patient and their family are under self-quarantine at home. The second case is an Air Canada flight attendant who is currently on Maui. The woman, believed to be a Canadian citizen, started showing symptoms on March 9th and was tested on March 11th. Health officials say she was exposed to someone with COVID-19 in Germany the week before, and she remains in isolation at a Lahaina clinic. And the third patient is an Oahu resident who returned from Florida on March 8th. After developing a cough, the individual was tested on March 10th and remains in isolation at home.
As the private labs begin testing, that we anticipate seeing many additional cases.
All of Hawaii's cases so far have been exposed to the virus outside the state. But the state health director says banning travel to Hawaii or additional screening at the airports are not solutions.
The real answer to addressing the spread of the disease is social distancing. It's going to get here sooner or later. We can screen people and postpone it coming here, but it's going to end up here in Hawaii, undoubtedly.
The Centers for Disease Control on Sunday issued new guidance urging a nationwide halt on all events and gatherings of more than 50 people, including conferences, festivals, even weddings for the next 8 weeks. Governor Ige and Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell say they are reviewing the recommendations and considering other ways to encourage social distancing.
I've directed all of the department directors and agencies to look at opportunities and those employees who can work from home, and certainly encourage them to facilitate that.
We're going to be announcing that we're going to cancel all of our Royal Hawaiian Band concerts. Suspending our senior programs at our parks. I think it's better to go forward and then step back if necessary than to say, gee, I wish you would have done this earlier, and it's hard to catch up, particularly if the virus spreads.
Now, the Department of Education is extending spring break for public schools by 1 extra week. School officials say they'll take that time to plan ahead for what to do if the rest of the school year is interrupted, as well as develop sanitizing protocols. Meanwhile, the international scientific community is racing to find a vaccine and a treatment for the coronavirus. In Washington state, 1 clinical trial is taking a big step today. Here's Skylar Henry from Washington, D.C.
An experimental coronavirus vaccine was administered to a human test subject in Seattle today. The fast-tracked research is one of dozens of projects underway around the world as scientists frantically search for a way to contain and prevent the deadly virus.
The drugs that are going to be able to treat this disease are in development and look very, very encouraging. So the hope is there's some really positive news there in the next week or two.
But despite the early progress, public health officials say it'll take at least a year for a potential vaccine to be approved for use.
Our key message is test, test, test.
Until a vaccine is developed, officials at the World Health Organization are urging widespread testing to contain the virus.
It is important for countries to know where the virus is circulating within their countries and who is infected and who is not infected. And by doing so, you can effectively stop transmission between people.
After coming under fire for not having an adequate supply of coronavirus tests, the Trump administration is promising to ramp up testing efforts by the tens of thousands.
We will now have access in the days ahead to more than 2,000 labs across the country that have the equipment today to process coronavirus tests.
While dozens of people have died in the U.S. and thousands worldwide, the vast majority of patients with mild symptoms recover in about 2 weeks. Those with more severe illness may take up to 6 weeks to recover. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's closing his country's borders to anyone not a citizen or a permanent resident or American amid the coronavirus pandemic. He made the announcement this morning outside his home, where he is self-isolating after his wife tested positive for the virus.
We have been collaborating very closely with the United States, coordinating various measures that we've taken together. The level of integration of our two countries is quite particular, which is why we need to do some more work in order to ensure that we're doing what we need to do in the right way. But our first preoccupation is and always will be the continued safety of Canadians, and we will take the measures necessary to keep Canadians safe.
But then why are U.S. citizens being allowed into Canada? What does this mean for the U.S. border? When is it going to be closed at all?
At this point, we are closing our borders to all non-Canadian or non-permanent residents of Canada. We are recognizing that for the moment that measure does not apply to U.S. citizens, but we will have more work to do in the coming days to ensure that we're doing everything we need to do to keep Canadians safe and to ensure the flow of goods and necessary equipment to Canadians.
And in Europe, 3 of the countries hardest hit by the coronavirus have recorded their highest single-day death toll. France, Spain, and Italy all saw a spike despite a national shutdown. Here's Cindy Palm from London.
Obituaries for coronavirus victims span 10 pages in a local Italian newspaper. Sunday alone, Italy had a record one-day death toll of 368 people. In Spain, this woman lost her husband to the virus. She is also infected, but doctors denied her treatment for not being sick enough. Her children are trying to console her, risking exposure themselves. Across Europe, more than 100 million people are now in lockdown. Ski resorts have shut across France, Switzerland, and Austria. So far, there's no lockdown here in the UK, but the government warns it could order people over 70 to stay at home for up to 4 months.
I'm 77, so I'm right into that category and I don't fancy it.
Even though dozens of people have died from the coronavirus in the UK, some people think the panic is overblown.
It's all gone absolutely crazy, hasn't it? Hasn't everything gone crazy? You're just walking around, people are going constantly.
As Europe scrambles to contain the crisis, the military is monitoring streets in Spain, and police are using drones to broadcast messages urging people to stay home until the pandemic is over. Cindy Palm, CBS News, London.
All right, here at home, we've actually learned that there's going to be a 2 p.m. press briefing that we're going to carry live on HNN and on some of our TV channels as well. We're going to have it on our digital platforms, of course. You can watch it here on Facebook. That's 2 o'clock with Governor Ige. But in the meantime, other lawmakers have stopped into the Sunrise studio this morning. Ed Case was there. Grace Lee talked to him. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you know, for some people, they're criticizing the federal response to coronavirus, you know, the delays in testing kits, you know, the massive lines we saw at the airports over the weekend. What do you say to those critics?
Well, I think some of it is warranted. I think we got a slow start on this, and you know, I think after this passes, as it will, we need to go back and figure out what we did right and what we didn't do right. But the fact was, we were slow off the mark. But we are where we are right now, so you know, there's no sense in analyzing the past. We're here. What can we do? How can we help? How can we help people in their normal everyday lives? How can we help businesses? How can we make sure that the science of coronavirus is adequately funded and accelerated? How can we make sure vaccines are out there? How can we find drugs that we may have right now that may actually work? on coronavirus. These are the things we have to focus on and what we are focusing on in Congress.
And I think people are very much worried right now about losing their jobs, what they do if their kids have to stay home. You're working on a bill that is currently passed the House, not yet passed the Senate. It's a huge bill. There's so many safeguards in there. Can you tell me some of the highlights?
Well, sure. First of all, this is only one of three, at least three bills that we've already passed. Two of these in the U.S. House. The first one was 10 days ago. That was $8.3 billion emergency supplemental. That was to go after the science. That was to go after the how can we deal with this problem from a scientific medical perspective. The one that we just passed early Saturday morning, right before I flew home, was the Families First, and that goes to the everyday concerns of families. How do I keep my job? How do I keep my cash flow going? How do I help myself and my family if I don't have a job? How can I take paid sick leave? Because we don't want to have people making a choice between going to work to keep their jobs and staying home because they think they're sick. If they're sick, you should stay home. And so that was going after the real impacts to people, and we want to accelerate that out of the House and the Senate to the President as soon as possible. The third package is going to be purely about helping businesses, helping people with keeping businesses alive and sustainable through this crisis.
For those who are at home and they're foreseeing that they may be laid off or have reduced work hours, or they're business owners and they think, you know what, it is not looking good for my business, where can they go to say, I need help, where can I get it from?
Well, it depends on the help that they need, of course. I mean, paid sick leave, they should be able to take that paid sick leave to discuss that with their employer. For those that actually are laid off, the unemployment is accessible, and we're trying to boost that up so to the state for the unemployment. Frankly, any questions that people have that are not getting answered, contact me. And I'll try to get those questions answered at case.house.gov. And I'm on the job. I need to stay on the job. This is one of my major responsibilities right now, besides making the decisions that have to be made in Washington, is simply answering questions, because one of the real deficiencies, I think, has just been basic communication. The communication lines are not open enough, not transparent enough, and so people do have many, many questions. And of course, when you have concerns that turn into questions that are unanswered, that's when you start having fear. Right. And that's what we don't need right now. We need to walk through this very deliberately, using scientific evidence, using our best judgment, using logic. We can't go to fear.
You know, just to switch subjects a little bit, the coronavirus, obviously a big topic in last night's debate between Biden and Sanders. And we just wanted to ask you before we let you go if you were endorsing either of those candidates.
Well, I'm a supporter of Joe Biden at this point. I mean, I think that he does represent where I think my party needs to go into the general election. I think that he does present the best overall mainstream opponent for President Trump, and so that's where I am, and I think that's where it's going.
I know you travel back and forth between here and Washington, D.C. We appreciate your time. I know you're only here for a few days.
Well, I'm here for this week. Congress, this is our normal district work period for the House. Of course, we always are available to go back on a moment's notice to get things done during this period, but I'm here, I'm working. My office is mostly on telehealth at this point, but we are all working, and I think we need to be working right through this so that people know that we're on the job and trying to provide that leadership and answering those questions, and we'll all get through this.
All right, Congressman Ed Case, stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you very much.
We need you.
And meanwhile, in Las Vegas, long-running shows are being canceled or postponed. Also, Wynn and MGM Resorts announced they will suspend operations at all their Las Vegas properties starting tomorrow. Now, Wynn Resorts are expected to reopen in 2 weeks, depending on the situation. MGM did not announce a planned reopening date. Hotels that are closing include the Excalibur, Bellagio, Mandalay Bay, and many others along the Strip.
And you were just there a week and a half ago or so, and so many of us visit the Ninth Island. It's crazy to see it like this.
Yeah, when I was there, the casinos were eerily empty for, Friday, Saturday night, but to shut down complete operations.
The economic loss there. And
yes.
yeah, we were reporting on the buffets starting to shut out weeks ago, but now this seems like a much more drastic reaction to how the city is handling it there. All right, let's move over to here at home again. We've had reports of some things in the shelves becoming a little barren. Toilet paper, we've all seen that. We sent our new Sunrise reporter, Casey Lunn, out to get the status check with shoppers of how things are going this morning. Let's check in with him.
The number of COVID-19 cases continue to grow. Hawaii's leaders are concerned that a level of panic could set in as people rush to stores like this Nu'uanu Safeway to stock up in case they have to stay home for that 2-week quarantine period.
No, my wife went to the Safeway on Baratania yesterday, and they were totally out of, your common goods, toilet paper and such. And she walked out, she was all disappointed. So we went to another store and they had her limited on like two toilet papers.
Across the state and country today, scenes like this at the Nu'uanu Longs, empty store shelves. Gerald Black says his wife was employed by Marriott and was recently laid off.
I've seen a lot since I've been here, and I've never seen anything like this. And I hope it stops soon. So I'm doing some smaller jobs to try to stay afloat, but you only stay afloat so long on these little things, and then people get scared. They don't want to move.
Yesterday, Mayor Caldwell making a plea to shoppers to only buy what you need.
Be compassionate. You should be prepared and buy enough, but not overbuy. You leave everyone else, particularly those who are the least fortunate, more exposed. And we're asking to show aloha and think about it before you take action.
No hoarding, we just go and whenever we need, and it's not an everyday thing.
Napua Kalekini and her sister Cynthia say they are relying on their faith in God to get them through these uncertain times.
I'm gonna be real. We're in the last days. We really are in the last days.
Reporting downtown, Casey Lunn, Hawaii News Now.
And new today, Diana Ross has canceled her upcoming concerts in Hawaii. She had been planning to perform at the Blaisdell and the Maui Arts and Cultural Center in May. We're told that tickets purchased through Ticketmaster will be refunded automatically, and visit the box office if you bought your tickets in person.
All right, switching gears here, let's take you outside. We're looking there at the harbor downtown. We got some severe weather advisories, and we want to get a check with Guy Hoggy to get you up to date on all of those.
Aloha. On this Monday, flash flood watch has been extended for the entire state until tomorrow evening. It might even be extended beyond that because the storm system responsible for heavy rain with flooding conditions is likely to linger around for the next several days, probably until Friday before it really weakens and pulls away. And now there's the system. It's about 600 miles to the west of Kauai, slowly moving to the east. Now the moisture field extends far beyond the Big Island. So even though most of the rain this morning is over Oahu and Kauai with more on the way, the Big Island and Maui not out of the woods because they could get heavy rain and thunderstorms later in the week. So for today, the heaviest rain is expected to fall on Kauai and Oahu. However, there's still a threat for flooding conditions, for thunderstorms and heavy rain for the rest of the state as well. Plus, we got those brisk and breezy Kona winds, and that will lead to a rise on the south shore surf, but it's going to be ugly, stormy, and choppy. Better conditions up in the country with that dying swell, but keep in mind, no matter where you go, do the eyeball check. Make sure that water is clean. Because if you got runoff coming into the ocean, that's a bad situation. Do not, you got to avoid that. So again, spotty thunderstorms with some heavy rainfall likely all the way through Friday. Drier weather not due back until Saturday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
All right, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we've been hearing some even about pets, our furry friends at home, about if they can catch the virus, if they can spread the virus. You know, our own CNN reporter, that is Mindy Gaither, is here, and she's going to dispel some of those myths for us. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Multiple health organizations have all stated that domestic pets and animals are not at risk for contracting COVID-19.
Julie Castle is the CEO of Best Friends Animal Society, which runs the nation's largest sanctuary for homeless animals. Castle says they can carry it on their fur, but the American Veterinary Medical Association, or AVMA, says it's, quote, very unlikely a person would contract the virus by petting or playing with the pets. Animals can spread other diseases.
Make sure that you bathe your pets and practice good hygiene with your pets. Wash your hands after petting your pet.
The AMVA also advises people who have contracted the novel coronavirus to limit interactions with their pets out of an abundance of caution. All experts agree the main theme right now is to use common sense.
You might want to figure out alternatives like walking your dog on a different route that isn't populated with so many people.
With so many people staying at home right now, Castle says it's actually the perfect time to enjoy your pet more and even consider fostering or adopting a new furry member of the family.
That's a proven fact that your pets can really, help calm you down, help calm the family down, because they are that constant.
For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Thanks, Mandy, for that report.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of you posting on social media about this. So Starbucks is moving to a to-go model for at least 2 weeks to prevent people from getting sick in its stores. The company says it is closing off seating in the cafe and patio areas, but customers can still order at the counter. Now they say you can also use the drive-thru and their mobile app. Starbucks will close stores in some malls, university campuses, and areas where there are large clusters of coronavirus cases.
For our podcast listeners, we're looking at some pictures our coworkers sent in when they were on their way to work and going for their usual typical Starbucks run. It's a completely empty store there. No one's even inside. All those tables empty. They even have the seats turned up on top of the benches and tables, so you don't even have the option to sit down.
Right, and that sign, it says that's where the condiments are usually. The cinnamon, the sugar, all that. So I guess you have to request it now. It's not just laid out for you to take.
Oh, that makes really good sense. Really good common sense there, and I wouldn't even have thought of that, but way to go, Starbucks, taking what they need to do to keep us all safe, hopefully. And that's going to do it for us today for This Is Now, folks. We have continuing coverage all afternoon planned here at H&M. Again, we have that 2 p.m. press conference with Governor Ige. We're going to take that live on KGMB, KHNL if you want to watch it on TV. If not, you can watch it on our H&N app, our .com, or here on Facebook. So lots of options to get that information because it's going to be some important stuff that you want to know. We also have a new newsletter that we're sending out. You can sign up for it on our H&N app or on our .com as well. Until then, I'm Jonathan alongside Ashley. We really thank you for joining us for This Is Now.